You still have 5 days to purchase Many Worlds over on Bandcamp at whatever price you like. All proceeds from the sale of this album and all of my other music goes directly to the Inter-Faith Food Shuttle, a local food bank I've worked with before.
Hi there, I'm Jamie Luttrell. I arranged, wrote, and produced Many Worlds. I hope you're enjoying listening to the album. I thought today it would be fun to sit down and kind of share some thoughts and history about the different tracks that went into it, why I chose the tracks they did, and the history of how I made them, some decisions that I made. I thought it'd be interesting to do that, so I'm going to take some time to break every track down and share some thoughts. This will be a little rambly. I've got some points on each track that I definitely want to talk about, but I'm going to just kind of do this off the cuff and share some insight with you. The first track, File Select amusingly, was probably the last song to be added to the album. It felt like a fitting introductory song, even if the next track on the album is also a menu introductory song. Super Mario 64 was so many people's awakening into video games, so having that be the first track that you hear, I thought made a lot of sense. I never really built a demo for this piece. I kind of just built it as I went. I definitely learned to play it on piano first and then just built towards something bigger. One of the things you'll notice about this piece is that it's very layered. It builds pretty dramatically from the first instance of the melody to the last instance of the melody. I got to include a lot of instrumentation in there that I was really excited to. I was so glad I managed to fit ukulele into this album somewhere. But I'm especially proud of how this one builds because I think it gets you very excited for the rest of the album. And it of course ends on the Summer's Dread motif, which is a motif I use in a lot of my music. It's from a song called Summer's Dread, which I've never officially released actually, but it's just a short little melody that kind of harkens to my musical sensibilities, and it's just like a little signature that I put in most albums. In Case of Trouble is from Bastion, which is a fantastic video game, and one of the reasons it's as fantastic as it is because its soundtrack is better than any soundtrack for any video game ever. The composer Darren Korb is a fucking genius. The man takes weird synthy electronic sound design and blends it with acoustic folk instrumentation, and it's just mind-boggling. I want this man to make the music for my biographic documentary that comes out one day. This song has a whole lot of texture that's bolstered by the atypical tuning that it calls for. It actually calls for something called Celtic tuning, which is D-A-D-G-A-D, which is very different from standard guitar tuning. It's almost open D, but not quite. The earliest demo I have for my arrangement of this song is from December of 2015. And it's changed a fair amount, but mostly the things that have changed have been the intros and outros. I wrote a bunch of different intros and outros for this, one of which actually flowed from The Parting Glass, which is a song that I've touched on many times. But the version that I ended up releasing is a pretty acoustic forward version, right? It's just the guitar and a little bit of harp, which was added kind of last minute because I didn't want to lose the resolution that little melody has for the song. The original is much more frantic and a lot more layered. It's got a lot of rhythm to it that my version doesn't have, but mine has some dissonance that I really think adds to the piece. Fun fact about this song, I had to re-record the entire thing because I realized after I recorded and mixed and mastered and listened to it 1,000 times that one of my strings on my guitar was just the tiniest little bit out of tune. Please go play Bastion. It's made by the same people who did Hades, and everybody loved Hades, and Darren Korb did the music for that too. So just go all of Supergiant stuff. Just go play all of it. Our Eternal Land was an interesting piece to work on. It's originally a choral piece from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And truthfully, I'm not a huge fan of the versions that ended up actually shipping with the game. There's 2 iterations of the song, one for daytime, one for nighttime, and both of them are beautiful. It's just the mixing and mastering is not great. Not that I'm one to talk because that's the thing that I'm worst at, but obviously I translated it from a choral piece to piano, and that gives it a very different vibe, although I still think there's a softness to it that is juxtaposed only by the really intense bridge that it has. But I think both iterations of the piece have a similar feeling there. My earliest version of this arrangement was recorded in November of 21, and the intro was notably different in that. It honestly sounds a lot more like some other music I've put out in the past, rather than this album. I think the intro that I ended on sounds much more like Many Worlds and much less like earlier second verse stuff. Not that it's bad either way. One of the things that's really interesting about this song in the context of the game that it exists in is it's so drastically different from the rest of Xenoblade Chronicles 2's soundtrack. The area in the game that you visit that has this piece is called the Indolane Praetorium, and it's a religious center, which is why this song is written the way that it is. This is one that, like, if I had the resources, I would love to do a full choral version of. But I'm really happy with the decisions that I made and how to release it on this album. A Ghost Pumpkin Soup slaps! I love this song. It's so dumb and perfect, and I love it. Sonic Adventure 2 is a terrible video game that I love with every fiber of my being. It's so ridiculous and nostalgic. I was so excited to add this. This was another late addition to the album. I was so grateful that John Lawrence was willing to do a cover of the original verse, because it's so cheesy and corny and wonderful. I love it. If you listen to the original version of this song and you listen to my version of this song, you can tell they're the same songs, but the vibe is way different. I think the original is much more hip-hoppy, and mine is almost haunting in a way. I put a lot of reverb on a lot of the instrumentation on it, and I also blended acoustic guitar and beatboxing and rhythmic synth, so it's got this weird hybrid quality to it that, like, it doesn't feel quite as polished as the original, which I actually like. The second verse on this track was written by my friend Eric Dutton, who I have worked with a couple of times, and his verse is wonderful. It has lots of little nods to different video games, and it also has an explicit reference to when he and I were both working at Red Robin together, which I love. I didn't ask him to add any of that. It was all him. Welcome to the Academy and Aftermath are two of the three original pieces on the album, and you can tell they're different. I originally wrote them back in 2020, late 2020, I think, for my friend Catherine, who at the time was working on a visual novel with some college friends. I wrote those two pieces as part of the demo of their work that they were building. Now, unfortunately, as far as I can tell, that demo no longer exists. Catherine doesn't have access to it, which makes me sad. I never got a chance to play it, but I kind of fell in love with these very simple pieces. The mentality behind both of them kind of circled on the fact that they were both background pieces, right? So they didn't need to be all up in your face. They needed to be subdued and something you could listen to repeatedly without wanting to die. It's hard to strike that balance, and I hope I succeeded, even if it doesn't really matter now. The story of this visual novel took place in a school, hence Welcome to the Academy. One of the things I added very late into the production of this song was the bell that chimes in time with the music. I was so glad I added that. That was one of those. It just tied everything together a little bit more and was really on theme. And the climax of the first act of this game, one of the main characters takes their own life, hence Aftermath. It's supposed to be this kind of melancholy, unsure, tonally ambiguous piece that was still in line with Welcome to the Academy, right? It was supposed to still feel like it was from the same place. I really wanted to make sure that I included these because I really liked them, and they fit thematically with what I was trying to do with the album, which was show off really interesting video game music and fun video game music and video game music that meant something to me. I think outside of the last pieces of the album, Little Root Town is the anchor of this entire record. Pokemon Ruby was my first video game, so adding a song from it felt like a logical step to take, and Little Root Town is such a fantastic town theme. I couldn't not add that one. This piece, the piece that follows, The Moon, and Our Eternal Land were all very heavily influenced by Gentle Love's Prescription for Sleep. If you have not experienced Prescription for Sleep, I've talked about it a bunch of times in the past, but it is a video game cover album as well, although they've branched out and done like anime and stuff, where they translate these pieces into lullabies, and they're beautiful and wonderful. I highly recommend you take time to listen to them. Especially Prescription for Sleep Volume 2. That's my personal favorite of all the albums, but they're all great. Please go listen to them. I started working on Little Root in 2020, and it changed a fair amount, although it was, again, mostly the introduction and the transition into the moon. Again, these pieces were meant to be together, so the flow is as smooth as I think I could reasonably make it. Originally, the song just had its own intro. The addition of My Bonding Lies Over the Ocean came later because I thought it really helped hammer home the song is meant to be heard as a lullaby thing. And so does the fact that the following piece is the moon. It's all thematically consistent. My favorite change that I made to the original interpretation of the song was this bit in the second verse.
This is so I don't forget. This is a change I'm making to the Little Root composition. So second verse after the go into second verse. So we have this. Like on the second round of the first verse. Here's the change. And then this part's the same. So that's the big changes right here to this. That's the difference. Don't forget.
Where there's a little bit more dissonance than in the first, and it like indicates that a transition is happening now. I was really glad I added that. It was actually my brother Michael who was like, yeah, no, you should keep that. The moon is iconic. I mean, anytime you think NES music, DuckTales comes up. And I found that the transition from Little Root Town to the moon was incredibly natural, and it felt like a singular piece in many instances. So I was grateful to be able to add this one to the album too. I actually learned the moon back in like April of 2019, I think. It might have been a little earlier than that. I'm pretty sure I learned it because I went to like cat sit for my friend Julian, and he had a piano in his house, and so I just started playing around and figured out how to play the moon. The recording that ended up on the album has two different pianos playing, which I probably could have approached in a different way. I still really love the way that it sounds, but there's some doubling on it that's maybe not as expected, and doesn't happen quite as much, or if at all, in the rest of the album. And I think this is another piece that sounds a lot more like old second verse than this album. But again, I don't actually mind that. I just think it's an observation that's worth saying. Goodbye to a World is the only track that isn't either from a video game or an original piece. And I have a habit of covering Porter Robinson songs, so it's not all that surprising that I chose to do so here. But again, it was one of those where a lot of the pieces in this record are meant to flow into each other. So the transition from Goodbye to a World to the next piece, The Promise, feels to me very natural. This is obviously the most complicated arrangement. There's a lot of instrumentation happening. There's bass guitar, there's marimba, there's vocals that are synthesized, there's vocals that are mine. And it builds and builds and builds and builds and then breaks, and you have this moment of recollection in the actual messaging of the song once the chorus comes in. I think I started playing around with this in July of 21, but it took me a while to get it to a point where going to The Promise felt correct. The Promise, I think, mirrors a lot of aspects of Goodbye to a World, where it starts big, right? Goodbye to a World builds a little bit, but it builds to a big thing and then it stops and then it calms down. And The Promise is the same way, right? It's this big choral introduction that then breaks when the messaging of the song and the vocals come in with the guitar. This one's another menu theme, specifically from Final Fantasy XIII. I have a very love-hate relationship with Final Fantasy XIII. It is simultaneously my favorite and absolute least favorite Final Fantasy game. It's one of those that's so close to being a perfect game, and then they just kept making decisions that tore it down. But I love this song, and another piece that I really love from Final Fantasy XIII's soundtrack is the battle theme, even if it gets grating after you hear it 20,000 times. There's a lot of really excellent music in this one. I actually went and saw a Final Fantasy concert with my family at one point live at a local theater, and it was incredible. Amusingly, I actually did at one point start writing an original battle theme that was very Final Fantasy XIII inspired. It was kind of halfway between Final Fantasy XIII and Pokemon, which are pretty different, admittedly. Even modern Pokemon battle themes are pretty different. One is very orchestrated and one is not. But I didn't get it to where I wanted it to be, so it ended up not making it on the album. I originally toyed with the idea of not doing vocals for The Promise, because I think that its strength is the melody itself and not necessarily the lyrics, but I ended up including them because it felt like a more intentional way to finish this bit of the song. And the chord that plays at the end of the song on repeat is the same chord that creates, when you play the strings independently, the Summer's Dread motif. And that is very intentional. Summer's Dread being the introduction to this album and also the indication of the end of the album brings the whole thing home, in my opinion. And one of the other things that I really loved was at the end of The Promise, you hear me cut the microphone. And in the next song, From Glass, you hear me start the microphone. This creates this interesting sense of, I don't know, time travel or something. The Promise to me feels like the end of the album, but From Glass and Dearly Beloved are like the epilogue that if you didn't have it, it would completely destroy the entire story. I recorded From Glass in February of 2016. You can tell when you listen to it that there are different microphones, obviously. I think I recorded this one on my iPhone 4S. And it's the original demo that's used as the foundation of the building blocks of the rest of the song. And you can tell because there are some parts of it that are very rough. But it was so intrinsically important. But the original From Glass recording is so important to me that I didn't want to try and re-record it. I didn't want to try to relearn how to play it. I needed that to be what the album ended on. Amusingly, From Glass, the name, actually was meant to be a nod at the time to a future EP I was working on called From Glass Songs for Alice, which was a Demo-inspired piano album. Demo is another video game to rhythm game. It's fantastic. Highly recommended. Are you seeing a through line here with the whole video game thing? Is that not clear at this point? And you can actually hear From Glass as it was originally recorded on my SoundCloud page, along with a bunch of other demos that I'll link below. But it was always supposed to go from Glass into Dearly Beloved. There's a reason this one's the last song. Kingdom Hearts is my favorite video game franchise of all time. It shaped who I am as a person, and it was always gonna be the last song on the album. Yoko Shimomura is a genius. She can do no wrong, in my opinion. There's a lot of great video essays on her work and how brilliant she is. I'll recommend this video. It'll be linked down below as well. Where it's a whole breakdown of the music theory behind the 13th Struggle, which is one of the battle pieces from Kingdom Hearts, and it's fantastic. But Dearly Beloved is the song that is the through line for Kingdom Hearts as a series. It's in every game. There's a bunch of different iterations of it, and my iteration takes what is objectively a pretty simple melody and turns it into this big emotional celebration, and that's what the end of the album needs. It is, in contrast to The Promise, bombastic right up until the end. The Promise starts bombastic and ends subtle, and Dearly Beloved, it's the complete opposite. And God, I love it so much. It's From Glass and Dearly Beloved are probably my favorite tracks on the whole thing. If not, The Little Root's up there too. There were a bunch of songs that didn't get included in the final release of Many Worlds. Obviously, I mentioned the battle theme already, but I was working on a couple other ones, including I was going to do a cover of Honeybee from SteamWorld. Originally, that song was written by the band Steam Powered Giraffe, who I love. That song is brilliant. I ended up not being able to record the whole thing. I wanted to do it with a group of people, and that didn't end up happening for various reasons. I also had a demo that I recorded of a song called Broken Perfect, which was originally written by Jake Kaufman for a project called Neuron, which was a Kickstarter that I covered back in the Oblivion days. That project never came to fruition, and I still have the demo. I might release it at some point, but I might explore a lot of these things and songs at another point. There's some music from Sonic Advance that I would really love to do, specifically the song that has this lick in it, because I love this lick so much. That was another one that was going to be kind of Prescription from Sleep inspired, but it ended up not working the way that I wanted to. I was having a hard time learning it, and also that would have been like the fourth piano only piece, and I was like, that's probably enough. And if I ever explore Many Worlds as a video game concept again, I really want to do the DK rap with my friends. I really, really want to do the DK rap. So that's a little bit about the production of Many Worlds. This album was a labor of love. Obviously, I started working on it, so to speak, playing around with the ideas for it back in 2015, and it didn't come out until this year. So it was definitely a labor of love, and I do love it. I'm really quite proud of how it turned out. I hope you enjoy it. I love Many Worlds as a concept. I think that I may at some point in the future explore Many Worlds as an excuse to do covers of like musical theater or film songs, or something that's not just video games but that just is like media, because that's the whole idea of Many Worlds. It's the idea that there are so many stories and places that we get to use our imaginations to visit, and we should celebrate that. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for listening to the album. I hope you enjoy it. I really genuinely do. I love this album, and there's much more to come. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves, and thank you.